Rose had barely lifted her spoon for dessert when her grandmother smiled across the table. "So," Grandma Evelyn asked warmly, "how are you liking the condo I bought you?" The room felt perfectly ordinary for one more second. Then it wasn't. Rose looked up, confused enough to think she'd misheard. "The what?" "The condo," Grandma repeated with a laugh. "Don't tell me you've already forgotten about it." Rose gave a small, embarrassed smile and glanced around the table. "I'm sorry, Grandma. I think there's been a mistake." "What mistake?" "I don't own a condo." She spoke quietly. "I still rent a tiny studio apartment." A sharp crash shattered the silence. Everyone turned. Rose's mother, Linda, stood frozen beside the dining table as pieces of her shattered water glass scattered across the hardwood floor. For several long seconds, nobody moved. Grandma Evelyn slowly lowered her fork. Her smile disappeared. "What did you just say?" she whispered. Rose swallowed. "I've never owned a condo." Every pair of eyes shifted between Rose and Linda. Linda forced a nervous laugh. "Oh, honestly, Rose," she waved her hand dismissively. "She's joking. You know how dramatic she can be." Rose frowned. "I'm not joking." Linda's smile tightened. "Sweetheart, this isn't funny." "No," Rose answered carefully. "I'm serious." The cheerful conversation that had filled the dining room only moments earlier vanished completely. Something was terribly wrong. And for the first time, everyone seemed to realize it. The annual Bennett family lunch had always followed the same routine. Grandma Evelyn insisted everyone come, no excuses. The cousins argued over card games. The aunts shared recipes. Linda usually managed every conversation before it could become uncomfortable. She was the dependable daughter, the one everyone trusted to organize finances, appointments, and anything Grandma no longer wanted to handle herself after Grandpa passed away. Rose had never questioned that arrangement. Neither had anyone else. Grandma leaned forward slowly. "But I've been asking your mother about that condo for years." Rose blinked. "For years?" Linda immediately interrupted. "Mom, you're remembering it wrong." "No," Grandma replied quietly. "I'm not." She looked back at Rose. "Didn't you repaint the living room blue 2 summers ago?" Rose stared blankly. "I've painted exactly one apartment in my life, and my landlord charged me to paint it back." An uncomfortable chuckle died before anyone joined it. Grandma continued. "What about the little balcony with the flowers?" Rose shook her head. "I don't even have a balcony." Silence settled over the table again. One cousin slowly looked toward Linda. "Wait. I remember you telling us Rose had finally moved into Grandma's condo." Another aunt nodded. "You even showed us pictures." Linda's chair scraped against the floor. "Oh, for goodness sake," she snapped. "Everyone is blowing this completely out of proportion." Rose stared at her mother. "What condo are they talking about?" Linda refused to meet her eyes. Grandma's hands trembled slightly as she reached for her napkin. "I kept every document," she said softly. Linda's head snapped toward her. "There is absolutely no reason to dig through old paperwork." Grandma didn't even look at her daughter. After lunch, she folded the napkin carefully onto her lap. "I want to see every paper connected to that condo." No one reached for dessert again. No one resumed talking. Only one question remained in everyone's mind. If Rose had never received the condo Grandma bought for her, who had? Grandma Evelyn waited until the last relatives drifted toward the living room before quietly touching Rose's arm. "Would you take a walk with me, sweetheart?" Rose nodded. The two stepped into the backyard garden, where Grandpa's old rose bushes still lined the stone path. For a moment, neither of them spoke. Finally, Grandma sighed. "Rose, why didn't you tell me you were still renting?" Rose looked at her in confusion. Because I didn't think there was anything to tell. Grandma searched her granddaughter's face. Your mother told me you loved that condo. Rose let out a hollow laugh. I've spent the last 6 years moving from one tiny apartment to another. She pointed toward the worn shoes on her feet. I teach 2nd grade, Grandma. I tutor after school 3 nights a week just to keep up with rent. Last winter, my landlord raised it again, so I stopped replacing furniture and started taking extra weekend work. Grandma's eyes filled with tears. Linda told me your mortgage was almost paid off. Rose stared. Mortgage? She said you were repainting rooms, replacing appliances, even complaining about the homeowners association fees. Rose slowly shook her head. I've never paid an HOA fee in my life. Grandma covered her mouth. I bought that condo after your grandfather passed away, she admitted softly. He always worried you'd never be able to afford a home. I wanted it to be our surprise for you after everything was finalized. Rose felt her stomach tighten. If you bought it for me, how did Mom know every detail about it? Before Grandma could answer, raised voices drifted from inside the house. Linda was speaking quickly. I'm telling all of you, Mother's memories have been slipping. She's confusing things. Rose glanced through the kitchen window just in time to see Linda pull out her phone, type an urgent message, and quietly slip out the back door toward the driveway. Who's she texting? Rose whispered. Grandma's expression hardened for the first time that afternoon. We're going to find out. She straightened her shoulders. The closing documents are in my safe deposit box. When they returned inside, Linda immediately stepped between them. Mom, there's no reason to drag old paperwork into this. Grandma looked directly at her daughter. If my memory is wrong. She held Linda's gaze without blinking. The paperwork will prove it. Monday morning arrived with none of the usual small talk. Instead of meeting for coffee after church, the Bennett family gathered outside the bank where Grandma Evelyn had kept her safe deposit box for years. Rose noticed that 2 cousins, an aunt and Uncle David had all come without being asked. No one wanted to be left wondering what the documents would reveal. Inside a private conference room, the bank manager unlocked the box and carefully placed a thick folder on the table. Grandma slid it toward Rose. I've waited years for you to have these. Rose opened the folder with trembling hands. The first page was a deed. She read the name once. Then again. Owner, Rose Bennett. She whispered, this is my name. Linda folded her arms. It doesn't mean anything. The purchase was never completed. The bank manager frowned politely. Actually, ma'am, our records indicate the closing was finalized. He turned another page. There are also several requests submitted shortly afterward to change the mailing address and primary contact information. Everyone leaned closer. The manager stopped. That's unusual. What is? Uncle David asked. The contact wasn't changed to the owner's address. He looked up. It was changed to Linda Bennett. The room went completely still. Rose stared at her mother. I never signed anything. I was helping you, Linda answered quickly. You asked me to handle the paperwork because you were busy. Rose's voice stayed calm. I've never even seen this folder before today. Grandma slowly shook her head. I always wondered why Rose never thanked me herself. Linda immediately jumped in. I told you she was overwhelmed and wanted me to deal with everything. Grandma's face fell. I believed you. Just then, Cousin Melissa pulled out her phone. Wait a second. She typed the condo's address into a property website. Her eyes widened. This can't be right. What? Rose asked. Melissa turned the screen around. The condo has been rented continuously for years. Aunt Carol looked from the phone to Linda. So somebody's been collecting rent. From a condo that legally belongs to Rose. Linda pushed back from the table, so abruptly her chair nearly tipped over. This has gone far enough. You're all making accusations without understanding the facts. Grandma calmly closed the folder. Then let's understand the facts. She looked at everyone gathered around the table. We're going to the property management office. Less than an hour later, the family walked through the front doors together. A woman behind the reception desk looked up from her computer. Her expression immediately brightened. Oh. She smiled directly at Linda. Mrs. Bennet, you're back already. The receptionist's smile faded as she noticed the rest of the family standing behind Linda. Oh, is everything all right? Linda answered before anyone else could. We're just here to clear up a little misunderstanding. Grandma Evelyn stepped forward. I hope so. A property manager emerged from an office after hearing the conversation. The moment he saw Linda, he extended his hand. Mrs. Bennet, I wasn't expecting you until next month's inspection. Rose felt her stomach drop. The manager looked toward the others. And who might these folks be? Grandma answered quietly. I'm the woman who purchased the condo. The manager blinked. I'm sorry. I bought it for my granddaughter. She gently rested a hand on Rose's shoulder. Her. Confusion spread across the manager's face. I thought Mrs. Bennet managed the property on the owner's behalf. I've never been here before, Rose said. The manager stared at her. You've never visited your own condo? No. The office fell silent. After a brief pause, the manager excused himself and returned carrying a thick property file. I'm going to need to verify a few things. He spread several documents across the conference table. Maintenance approvals, lease renewals, inspection reports, repair authorizations. Every signature belonged to Linda. Every emergency contact listed Linda's phone number. Every rent payment had been deposited into the same account for years. Rose's voice barely rose above a whisper. So someone else has been making every decision. The manager nodded. As far as our records show. He opened another folder. The legal ownership remained under Rose Bennet's name after the purchase. Rose looked up sharply. My name? Yes. You were always listed as the beneficiary and legal owner. She slowly turned toward her mother. You knew. Linda folded her arms. I protected that property. Protected it, Rose asked. You weren't ready to own a home. I was 23 when Grandma bought it. You were irresponsible. Rose shook her head. I didn't even know it existed. The property manager quietly slid another document across the table. The contact information was changed less than 3 weeks after closing. Grandma leaned closer. The date. Her voice trembled. Rose was still finishing her teaching certification. The manager nodded. According to these records, she never received a single piece of correspondence after that. Grandma slowly closed her eyes. Every update you gave me. She looked directly at Linda. Came from these files. Linda said nothing. Uncle David broke the silence. You told all of us Rose loved living here. Cousin Melissa added quietly. And every time Rose talked about saving for a down payment, you told her housing prices were too risky. Rose suddenly remembered every conversation. Every time she'd excitedly mentioned looking at starter homes. Her mother had discouraged her. Wait another year. The market is terrible. You're not financially ready. None of it had been advice. It had been a way to keep her from discovering the truth. An attorney retained by the property management company arrived after reviewing the ownership records. He examined the documents one by one before looking at Rose. The ownership chain is clear. He turned toward Linda. The financial handling. He paused. Raises serious legal concerns. Linda took a slow breath. Rose. Her voice was softer than it had been all day. "Can we talk, privately?" For the first time in her life, Rose didn't hesitate. "No." The single word echoed through the conference room. The attorney reached into the file one final time. "I believe everyone should see this before we continue." He placed a detailed bank statement in the center of the table. Every rental payment, every deposit, every transfer, every dollar, all leading to one account. Linda's. The attorney let the silence linger as everyone stared at the bank statement. Line after line showed monthly rent payments. Every deposit flowed into the same account. Linda Bennett. There were no missing months. No unexplained gaps. Nearly 7 years of rental income had been collected from a condo that had legally belonged to Rose the entire time. Grandma Evelyn slowly lowered herself into a chair. Her hands trembled as she traced the name on the original deed. "I bought this home," she whispered, "so my granddaughter would never have to struggle the way your grandfather and I did." She looked at Rose. "And all these years?" Rose nodded quietly. "I've been paying rent every single month." Grandma covered her face. "Oh, Rosie." Tears rolled down her cheeks. "I thought I had already given you the security you deserved." Rose walked over and gently held her grandmother's hands. "You didn't fail me." She glanced toward Linda. "I know who did." Linda finally broke her silence. "I was going to tell you." Uncle David shook his head. 7 years later. "I needed the income," Linda replied. "After your father died, everything changed." "Then you should have asked for help," Aunt Carol answered sharply. "You don't steal from your own daughter." Linda's voice cracked. "I wasn't stealing." Rose looked directly at her. "You changed my address. You signed documents that weren't yours. You let me work evenings tutoring children so I could afford rent." Her voice remained calm. "While collecting rent from the home Grandma bought for me." For the first time, Linda had no answer. The attorney closed the file. "The ownership is not in dispute." He slid several documents toward Rose. "Effective immediately, management authority returns to the legal owner." Rose signed the paperwork with a hand that was steadier than she expected. The attorney continued. "We'll also begin a full accounting of all rental income collected over the past several years. Any improperly retained funds will be addressed through the appropriate legal process." Linda lowered her head. Nobody defended her. Nobody argued. The trust she had spent years building within the family had disappeared in a single afternoon because every excuse had collapsed under the weight of the evidence. Over the following months, the financial investigation confirmed exactly what the documents had suggested. The rental income was calculated. Legal agreements required Linda to repay a substantial portion of the money she had diverted. She also stepped away from handling any family finances, something Grandma insisted upon herself. "I trusted the wrong person," Grandma said one evening. "I won't make that mistake again." For Rose, life changed in quieter ways. She moved into the condo with only a few boxes, a used sofa, and the same bookshelf that had followed her from one tiny apartment to another. The first morning she woke there, she stood on the balcony as the sun rose over the neighborhood she'd never known belonged to her. There was no landlord waiting to raise the rent. No lease renewal to worry about. No second job she needed just to keep a roof over her head. A few weeks later, Grandma came to visit. She smiled as Rose opened the front door. "So," Grandma asked softly, her eyes shining through happy tears, "how do you like the condo I bought you?" This time, Rose smiled back. "I love it." She wrapped her grandmother in a long embrace. "Thank you for never giving up until you found the truth." Later that evening, Rose placed the original deed into a simple wooden frame and set it on a bookshelf in the living room. It wasn't there to remind her of what had been stolen. It was there to remind her that lies can delay justice, but they can't erase it forever.